I was listening to the Cleaning Up podcast this week where the guest was Rory Sutherland, who is the Vice Chair of Ogilvy UK. I will leave a link to the episode in the show notes, but for me it really epitomised everything that I struggle with in marketing and why I left the industry just around the time of COVID. And it reminded me of a podcast I did a few years ago now with Sarah Santacroce. And she is a lady who, again, had the same kind of epiphany I had around marketing and developed her own process, her own concept, which she calls gentle marketing. It is about authenticity, it's about integrity, and it's not about manipulation. It's an enjoyable conversation talking about her history as she was brought up on a commune. So she had this kind of hippie background. And it's well worth taking the time to listen to this show because it covers some of the basics of her process and marketing and her story, which is just a lovely story. Before I take you there, I'd just like to remind you to check out the website at lifepassionandbusiness.com, where you'll find all sorts of resources, particularly focus coaching. More about that later. Let's get you to the podcast with Sarah Santacroce. My name is Paul Harvey, and you are listening to Life, Passion and Business, a podcast born out of my desire to find greater meaning in life at the time when I thought there was none. Since that day, I have spoken to hundreds of people, and what I have discovered is that our story is everything. Because what we do, feel or experience is based on the stories that we tell ourselves. It's time to explore what it means to live a good life. How do we make this experience better? And more importantly, how do we lead the world to a better place?
Well, my parents changed the way we grow up together or the way we create a community. I really would like to change the way we do business and do it in a more gentler way and empathic way. So that's when I, get passionate.
When I first spoke to Sarah Santacroce, she introduced herself as the hippie turned business coach, and I had to laugh. I had this vision of the VW Beetles with flowers painted on the side. She lives in Zurich, Switzerland, and as you'll hear, she has a lovely European accent with a touch of California. But jokes aside, Sarah is part of a growing tide of marketing professionals, and I will include myself in that group, who are starting to question the direction and the path that business has taken over the last 20 years. She is looking to start a gentle business revolution. Growing up, there were no big dreams. Languages came easily to her, and she speaks Swiss, German, English, French and Italian. She skipped college but started a career in marketing for an international business school, and over the next few years she worked in a range of corporate jobs. To begin the story, Sarah is from Switzerland, married to an Italian, and it was his job that moved them to California in 2006. With the children settled in school, it was time to consider her own career path. Choosing to step out on her own, she created a successful consultancy business with LinkedIn and social media strategies. And she became internationally recognised as a LinkedIn specialist and online presence mentor. Now, using the classic guru marketing, hustle and manipulation strategies, she grew that project to well over 6 figures. And by all business standards, that is a big success. However, some things come with a price, and as an introvert, she was well on the way to burning out. Recognising the signs, looking for a solution, she had a moment of epiphany. And that was 3 years ago when she rediscovered the gentle approach by looking back to her childhood. Now we get to the hippie story. Sarah had a unique childhood living in a community. In the 1980s, her parents, together with 5 other families, bought an apartment complex in Bern, Switzerland. Each family had their own private spaces, but there were communal areas, and much of the time was spent together as a group, eating together, exploring shared activities and caring for the house and gardens. Community living can be difficult. It's about getting on with people, making collective decisions and learning to compromise. It was a unique environment based around shared values and trust. Now, while Sarah distanced herself from it growing up, it made Sarah the woman she is today. And those gentle values of leadership and collaboration are part of who she is. We explore how she took those ideas and developed the Gentle Marketing Program in 2019, and how the year of COVID saw the writing of the book of the same name. It is her belief that the pandemic has brought a new consciousness as to how we live, and that marketing needs to change. For her, it was about going back and re-evaluating her journey, learning to appreciate her roots and bring that discovery into her work. Sarah and I are very much on the same page of this, and much of what she is saying is why I have stopped my own marketing business. Our conversation is about moving out from behind the mask, being the human in the business. It's about authenticity, about learning to be who we are and living by our values. I hope you enjoy the conversation with Sarah Santacroce. Sarah is a hippie turned business coach, or something along those lines. I know she's a touchy-feely person who is into marketing and bringing a more gentle side towards business and coaching. So it's going to be an interesting unpacking, as these things always are. So Sarah, thank you for taking your time to be with me today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Paul. I'm excited for our conversation because you told me you have this marketing background as well. And those are always the most interesting conversations.
Yeah. I have to be careful I don't get too geeked out on these things, because someone does something for me and I go, oh, tell me more. And I get really kind of silly about it. So I have to be disciplined with these conversations. And so tell me, Sarah, what's been the journey for you? Because you said you're a hippie turn. So have you always been a hippie? Is that where it all started?
It did start that way, but I wasn't always a hippie.
Okay. What does that actually mean? I mean,
it's a good question. Because
I think of hippie of sort of VW bus with flowers paint on the side of it or something.
I wish. No, I don't have that yet. When I grew up, so I tried to find a term of for my upbringing. The way I grew up was in this commune type surrounding, where my parents, they bought an apartment building with 5 other families. There were 6 of us. And so we each had our own apartment in this building, but there was a lot of common space as well. And we spent a lot of time with each other, eating at each other's places. The kids always hung out together. The parents always, organized something together. A lot of decisions had to be made in common because, anything that had to do with the garden or who was cleaning the staircase or like, we needed money for something, like a lot of decision making had to be done in common.
Whereabouts in the world was this?
Sorry?
Whereabouts did you, where in the world was this?
In Switzerland. So I was born and raised in Switzerland. And so this happened in the 1980s in the capital of Switzerland, in Bern.
That's fascinating. That's quite rare. I mean, well, no, it's not rare, because there was a lot of communities like that in the 60s.
There was, yeah, but it was still rare. Like I did not know anybody else who was living the way I did. And as you can imagine, as a child or then as a teenager, it was not something that I wanted to share too much with my friends. Like I was like the odd one out, and people are like, this is weird. We come to your house and people just walk into the door and, it's like, all these people in the building and yeah, it was just like bizarre. My parents also, it came probably from the hippie movement, but it's not like they walked around in those, flowery clothes or anything like that. But it was more like an ideology that the hippie kind of community kind of came up with. And so there's a lot of, talk about fairness, equality, gender equality, all of these values that were kind of, I guess, first brought to the world by the hippie movement.
That would be called co-housing nowadays, I think.
I guess, yeah, co-housing. Co-housing, usually the way it exists is like, a bunch of students in an apartment. That has always existed.
In the UK, there is co-housing people. So people come together to build and build a number of houses with common spaces. And that's become a lot more,
yeah. So something like that.
And probably quite so free and as yours by the sounds of it. But certainly there's a lot more interest in that. And I think that idea of community. And I live near a community. I live near the Finhorn Foundation, which is an international community, and that was based in the 60s. And that was literally built the same process. They have a community, they make community decisions, and they have community housing. So everybody lives in their own houses, but they use shared spaces.
Yeah.
Same kind of way, same kind of thing. So it sounds like they obviously were involved in that or had some connection with that somehow. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know where they got it. We were not like part of a bigger, movement where we belonged to some kind of guru cult thing or anything like that. And they also, when I asked my parents now, they didn't call themselves hippies. So it's not like that's what they thought of themselves. It was also very politically engaged. All the adults basically were very politically engaged. Left wing. So yeah, it was a very different upbringing.
I think that was probably an incredibly valuable upbringing for you, because what that would have given you, more so than anyone else ever gets, is the experience of seeing adults communicate properly and work together, which is, I think most children don't get to see. So
and how, often with these things, you only find out or see clearly when you're an adult yourself. And even as a young adult, I still didn't see the value of it. I went into a LinkedIn consulting career, basically built my business on the most kind of sterile and professional platform that had nothing to do with, kind of the community or anything like that. So I was really trying to hide that upbringing almost. I was like, no, I got to break out from that. I've got to go into the business world. But just, 2-3 years ago, coming full circle and really realizing, well, what am I doing on this world? What do I have to bring to people? That's when I went back to these values that I was growing up with in this kind of community sense. And yeah, you're so right. Having adults always having to find compromises, treating each other with kindness and fairness and just respect. That is, I think, now that I think about it, it's made a huge difference in the way I look at business world in general, like the way we treat each other in a business world or even outside of that. And it's huge.
Okay, so let's roll us back here, because we just traveled a lot of time in a very short space of time. So what did you want to do when you grew up? What was the dream of being when you got big?
I never had, it's like some kids have a dream of being an astronaut or anything like that. I was good at languages. So I thought, well, one day I'll use my languages. But other than that, I didn't have like this clear picture. My dad was an entrepreneur, but he was not a person that communicated a lot. So it's not like I really knew what entrepreneurship was like.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I am, as a person and a personality, I'm similar to my dad. And so when I finally decided to go freelance or build my own business, it came easy to me. But I can't say, oh yeah, I've learned so much from my dad like some entrepreneurs do.
But you fell into kind of working into LinkedIn, becoming a LinkedIn consultant. There must have been a journey between kind of like, what was the journey to get there? What did you do to get before you got to that?
I worked in marketing, so different corporate jobs at an international business school. Before that, even at the headquarters of McDonald's back in the days when McDonald's was still, popular. So I was in there and helped creating a training department. So different corporate jobs, just kind of like, going away from that political aspect that I was so surrounded with. I'm like, no, I'm going to do business. I'm going to do something else. And then we moved to California.
Was that pushing against your parents?
Yeah, that was part of it. Yeah.
And then you went to California, you say?
Then in 2006, we moved to California for a job transfer for my husband. And so I had to kind of quit the corporate job here. And that's when I was like, well, what am I going to do once the kids are settled in school?
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, it's time. I'm gonna, start my own thing.
So where's the passion in all of this?
Yeah, it's one of your questions. And I was like, you know what, Paul? I'm always jealous when people talk about passions. And in my book, I actually write that I think passion is overrated, because we want to get to this thing that we're so passionate about, and it kind of becomes this buzzword, right? And like I said, I'm jealous of people who are passionate about music or sports or, any kind of hobbies. I don't have that. I am passionate about my work. Like, that's what I'm passionate about. But at the same time, I miss this thing that people go like all crazy about. Yeah, like a collection, or like my friend, she's like really into hockey. I don't have that, but I do get passionate when we talk about changing the way we do business, for example. That's what I'm passionate about. It's like, and I think it comes a bit from my upbringing. It's like, well, my parents changed the way we grow up together, or the way we create a community. I really would like to change the way we do business and do it in a more gentler way and empathic way. So that's when I, get passionate.
And what does that look like for you then? What does getting passionate look like?
It comes back to what you said earlier about how adults communicate. To me, there's so much scarcity, I think, in the business world, the way also our generation grew up. It's like this definition of success that we have been fed, or that is kind of like mainstream. You have to always, do more in order to have more, in order to be more. To me, that is just so outdated. And it's interesting because now, after the pandemic, people I hear more and more people talking like that. They're like, yeah, maybe we need to kind of change our value system or our definition of success. And I think there is a way to do business that is not always about, getting more, or about killing the competition, about, mine and yours. It's like a lot more collaborative. I think that's what I envision.
Yeah. That's the problem with the current. I mean, people struggle with the fact that when it's all right, okay, let's tone it back a little bit. Yeah, we say we want to be in a culture with innovation and with sort of like, and taking on new things, and yet the one thing that we're not doing any innovation around is capitalism. We've got the process of capitalism, which I don't disagree has worked, but the main premise of capitalism is that you consume things, and then you keep consuming and keep growing and keep growing and growing and growing. And of course, we live upon a world that's finite. So at some point, we will touch the edges. And
exactly.
and to me, it looks pretty close. So I do wonder. I agree with you. We do have to find a new approach. And there's been loads of conversation around this. There's loads of interesting research. Have you heard of the circular economy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's a lovely idea. Of the idea there is no such thing as waste. Everything just goes round in a circle and never stops.
Yeah. No, exactly. Those are the initiatives that are, they just need to have permission to grow, and for people to get to this point of no return. It's like, I've struggled, I've hustled, I've done more, and yet I'm not happy. So where do I go from there?
Yeah.
That's pretty much what happened to me with the LinkedIn consulting. It's like, yeah, I built this business successful from the outside looking in, but yet I'm like, is this it? Like, that's just not enough for me. And so I think that's where people need to get in order to say, well, we want something else.
So how does that manifest for you now? How do you make you've moved from a LinkedIn consultant into this what you now call yourself the hippie consultant or hippie business consultant. How do you manifest that? What does that look like?
It really is for me about not hiding behind any masks anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So really just become the human in the business. And, that almost became a buzzword as well, like this human to human connection. But that's really it. It's like you bring to especially in this online world, we started to all wear masks and kind of pretend to be someone we're not. But once you come full circle and you really allow yourself to be who you are and show up in that way, that's when you have these real conversations with people. And that's where there's no more pretending. There's just so much more spaciousness, I guess, also in the collaborations. And also what is different for me now is like, I don't work with, goals anymore, like these financial goals. Oh, I have to work towards this. It's like, no, I do the work I'm meant to do. And by doing that, things will fall in place and things will happen. But I don't have to struggle and hustle towards that specific thing, because the happiness is in the journey and not in the result. And that's what I had to learn, right?
How did you learn that?
Way.
How did you learn that?
Well, by almost, burning out and giving up. It's like, well, fine, I hit the 6 figures that everybody seems to say that's that's basically success. And then you're like, wait a minute, how do I feel? How does that make me feel? And I was like, well, that's just not good enough for me.
You got to that point. What did it feel like? How did you turn it around?
To me, it was really related also to the way I marketed my business.
Mm-hmm.
So this mainstream idea of, you have to hustle in your business and you have to use all these guru methods and
mm-hmm.
kind of borderline manipulative strategies in order to always grow and get more people and more leads, right? And so that just really, I came to the point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Either I give up or I find something else. And then decided, okay, let me find something else. Let me try. And that's when this basically epiphany moment happened, when I came up with the term, the gentle business revolution. Like, in order for me to continue in business, I needed to be gentler. I needed to be, in a way where I don't have to pretend to have it all together if I don't. And so it was like really, really hard, like these moments are. It's like, well, let me put this out there. I'm building something new. I don't have all the answers. Here's a program that I'm thinking about that completely revamps marketing, completely, starts from scratch and says, what if, instead of doing the hustle, doing the hype, we brought more of us to our marketing. We marketed in a way where we bring in our worldview and our values and all of these things. And so I in 2019, I built the Gentle Marketing program with 3 beta rounds to just get information from people who felt like me and felt like burned out, trying to follow all these guru marketers. And so that's how it looked like.
Mm-hmm. And what's the how does it look different? How does that program look different from someone like, I mean, obviously, as a marketer, the one person that is the complete antithesis of that, what you're saying, is Gary Vaynerchuk. Mm-hmm. He is the crush it, get out there, hustle. Yeah. And if you're not in every platform, you're not doing it. So that's that. I actually think he's toning down a bit. I think he's recognizing it's not working. But I remember 5 years ago, that's what he was saying.
Yeah. And since he's saying that, he has all these other bro marketer, followers basically, who so he's like the one that shouts the loudest, but then there's all these other people who follow what he says. And so the web is full of this kind of marketing, right? Everywhere you go, whenever you follow a marketing program, it is kind of like that. Maybe it's a bit more toned down, but the idea is still the same. You gotta, build a product and then chase after the client. So the way it's different is that I actually said, instead of starting with your avatar, your ideal client, like we always do in every marketing program I've ever taken, you start with your client, which, makes sense. But the problem with that is that you then, after 10 years, burn out because you're wearing this mask, trying to be someone that this client likes, and just not feeling like you're being yourself. And so I said, what if we started with ourselves? What if we looked at ourselves first, who we are, so that we really bring all of ourselves to our business and marketing? And so that is values, that's it, our definition of success, really how we want to build this business around our life and our values, rather than creating a business and then trying to fit our life into it or fit our personality into it. And so it's almost like a hybrid between personal development and then pragmatic business advice or marketing advice.
I have to say, I don't see any other way of doing it myself, and that's kind of how I'm in that space as well. I mean, I structure my day around me, not around my business. Yeah. My business falls in around me.
Yeah, and it seems so obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people don't know that's where you should start, because we're in this doing kind of world where the more you do, the better you feel because you've done things, right? So the value of being is undervalued because it's not checking off certain things. So when people think about marketing, they keep on wanting to do more. They keep on wanting to, find out about Facebook ads. And if that doesn't work, then it's LinkedIn ads. And if that doesn't work, then, we're probably on the wrong platform. Instead of going inwards and saying, well, who am I? And what kind of client would resonate with who I am?
I think the issue here, what you're talking about, though, is it's because of the size of an organization.
Yeah.
For businesses who are the owner or one person and built around that person, that's possible. But once you start getting into a huge size, then they have to kind of build huge funnels and hoovering up all these people, bringing all these people in to try and hit the targets that they've set for themselves and all that sort of stuff. That's what you're talking about, really, isn't it? It's about size.
Yes and no, because eventually I think even the bigger companies will have to change their approach. And if you look at the B corporations, for example, one huge one is Patagonia. And yes, the founder is kind of not so much in the center anymore, but still it is his worldview, it is his values that have spread all over the company. And so it still matters what kind of, we often talk about purpose also in these companies, like what's the company's purpose? If you look back, it's always the origin story. So there has been one founder and he said the purpose, he said the worldview, and then it just needs to be very clear that that is the mission of the company. And so it would feel so wrong if Patagonia's marketing was all hypey and aggressive and manipulative. That just wouldn't fly.
It's fascinating this conversation comes up today, really, for me, because I've been having this conversation with several podcast guests over the last week or so around values. And it's interesting how how they seem to run. Like, I get a bunch of guests coming together. You all come in differently. Now, I haven't pushed you in this direction. You've all arrived separately over the last week, and we're all talking about values. And that's that's really interesting how that thing's come about. So from my listener's perspective, I put out a short cast yesterday, but this podcast won't go out for several months after it. So the point of values is that when we are in alignment with our values, then we feel comfortable and we feel happy. It's when we get out of alignment with our values that we start to feel discomfort. And
Right.
what you're talking about here is this idea of companies have values as well. And
Exactly.
and when the value of the company goes out of line with the world around it, then the world stops buying from it.
And that's what's happening. Marketing, the way we see it now, has stopped evolving probably the time the internet was invented, or just like 5 years after. So there's a 15-year lag between the way most people or most companies market and the level of consciousness in the world. So there's this huge misfit between the way we're being talked to by marketers and the way we think as conscious consumers. And especially now after this pandemic, why are we talking about values so much? It's because we had a reset of our values over the last 18 months.
Yes.
That's exactly why.
Yes.
And so that lag between marketing and consumers is even bigger now after this year.
That's the thing for me. This has come up for me several times in the podcast over the last few months. And this idea of what is humanity for? We've got this situation where over the last 1,000 years we've grown in terms of the size of population, and that was all about making the world work for us and building systems and things. And now we've got that point where all these systems there and they're all being stretched. Mm-hmm. But humanity can't be about making more humans constantly. It can't be about making more money, and it can't be about shareholder value. So that humanity has to find a purpose for itself. Mm-hmm. And I don't have an answer, but it's like we've got to find it, because it can't just be more of the same, more. It has to be something.
Yeah.
And it might be husbandry of the planet. It might be looking after our environment.
Yeah, I think it's still somehow related to growth, but it doesn't have to mean growth in terms of more. Mm. It could be like internal growth, or, spiritual growth, or intellectual growth, like that kind of growth.
I see, I guess it's very similar. I think about when you think about the Renaissance that happened in Europe during the Middle Ages. Yeah. And the only reason the Renaissance really happened is because there were people at the top of the tree who could do stuff. There were people, there were slaves and things happening around them, and resources were coming together. So people had time to sit around and think. And I'm assuming that's where it all came from. But it was an amazing amazing shift in terms of society at that time. But people at the bottom of the tree were still having trouble. People at the bottom of the tree were still not well looked after.
I think what's going to happen in the next 10, 15 years is really like these parallel worlds, like the people who are seeing that there needs to be another version of the way we do business, the way we just, treat each other, the way technology works. You've probably seen the documentary Social Dilemma. So there's these people who are like, we need progress, but we need it in a different way. And then there's this other world, the other people who are like, no, we need the same thing, and we need still, more growth and more. So these kind of two humanities kind of will go in parallel for at least another 5 to 10 years until, we'll see which one takes over.
Yeah, that's the status quo is desperately trying to maintain the status quo, isn't it?
Of course.
It's desperately trying to desperately trying to, no, we need to keep maintain the 3% growth. When you start looking at those numbers, it is quite shocking. And I don't have any answers. I'm just looking at the maths. It doesn't work.
I wish I had the answer, but no, I don't either.
So look, I think we've touched on a lot of this. So success personally for you these days, what does it mean? Because it obviously doesn't mean, you need money to live, but it doesn't mean that to you by the sounds of it.
No. To me, it really means spending time with the people who matter most to me. I'm a big fan of the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown. I don't know if you've read it, but
no, I haven't. But I have to go on the list.
Should.
Now you've mentioned it, it's going to have to go on the list, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a great book. And he's just coming out with his second book now called Effortless, which is very intriguing as well. And so timely because he's writing exactly about, all these people who are like done or burnt out from the hustle mode. So yes, A, we need to come back to what's essential, and B, the doing that we do needs to be done in a way that feels effortless. So it's just like this great concept. So yeah, for me, it means being able to spend time with the people who matter most. Because when you look at, imagine your last day, well, that's what matters, having had the time to spend with those who matter most. And yes, there's people talk about legacy and all these things. Yeah, I would like to make a change in the way we do business, but does it matter as much as, building a healthy family, creating a healthy family and having a partnership that lasts? No, in the end, what matters most is the people I love.
But that's success, and it's a great measure. It's what matters to you, and as long as we're living it, that's what matters. I mean, success obviously changed over time for you, because when you first started out in business, it was all about the hustle. So it's clearly that change process.
I think that's just that's just human as well. Like, as you're young, you're still like, yeah, I gotta get that car, gotta get that house. I wonder though, with the new generations, I don't see it happening the same way. They've looked at us and gone, are you guys crazy? Like, is this really what matters the most? So I see a different way of, for the new generations to value things. And I really look up to them, how they make time for what matters most, how they choose to work for companies who have a purpose. I think, we can learn a lot from them.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We are in the most amazing decade. I think there's so many things going to happen this 10 years or not, and I think humanity is probably at a transition point. So I'm it's very exciting to be around at this time, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So what is your contribution to the world and to yourself?
I don't know yet. I'm on this path, and I think really, if I think about contribution, then it would be somehow changing the way we do business. And even if that's only for one person, that feels like a good contribution.
Can't argue with that one at all. How about contribution for yourself? How do you contribute to yourself?
That's a good question.
It's new.
Yeah, like what do you mean by that? Like,
well, what I realized over the last few weeks is that it's very easy to contribute out and contribute and give and give and give, but at some point we have to contribute to ourselves. We have to give back to ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
And it's very easy as entrepreneurs and business people, as parents and all those things, to expend and burn ourselves. Because that's what I was doing. I realized I've been doing quite a lot of work on myself recently, and I noticed there was a time in my life when I did everything for everybody else and nothing for me.
Yeah. I guess then in this case it's really changing away from that LinkedIn consulting business and coming full circle and doing what I love and what I know is my contribution, but in a way that is not with the hustle. And sometimes that right now, because I'm still starting this new thing, it feels very uncomfortable, because the human kind of go-to method is doing more. But the contribution to myself is actually saying, no, things will come, you do things, steadily, but it doesn't come easier if you keep doing more. So what I do more of is more walks in nature, a daily yoga practice, a daily meditation practice, eating healthy food. That I want to do more of. What I want to do less of is hustle, saying yes to too many things. That's part of essentialism as well. It's like I've become very, very good at saying no to things. And that feels like a negative thing, but it's not, because then I get to actually spend the time on the things that do light me up, right? So that's, I think,
gosh, you've been listening to my podcast, because I did the Power of No a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Oh dear, yeah. The Power of No is amazing, because it's like and because when you say yes to something, you got to say no to something else, haven't you?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm just as bad. I people say things to me, I go, yeah, I'll do that. What have I done? Oh,
Yeah. Then it just happened last week, and then I had to call the guy and say, you know what? After reflection, it's not going to work out, and that's worse. Had I just said no in the beginning, it would have been way easier. But
I recognize if someone came back to me like that and said, I need to say no to this afterwards, I'd actually have quite a lot of admiration for them because of that. It would make it would, and I would say no. I'm saying no because I don't think I can serve you
right
as well as I could do because of this. That's why I'm saying no. And I think if you give me that, I would have a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, what I did in this case, I said, look, after all, I just don't think it's the right fit for me, but here's a person that I recommend that I think would be a better fit. And so it's like a win-win. It's like, yeah, I can't do it. I don't have the bandwidth, but I think this person would be a better fit for you. So
sounds brilliant.
Yeah.
So what's the one question you want people to ask you?
You already asked it at the beginning. It's this question about the hippie upbringing, because really that's the question that I've been hiding from for 20 years. And so now I just can't stop talking about it.
I'm really envious about your upbringing. I think it sounds fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And it just took so much courage to say, I'm different and I don't care. And that makes me special. But it's, when you grow up thinking always, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. My dad is going to pick me up on his bike instead of in a car like everybody else. And it's just like, it's this own story that you create in your head that now it's like, past 40, I don't care anymore what you think. This is who I am. And it feels really good.
I always love that phrase. What other people think of me is none of my business.
Yeah, exactly.
Always hard to live by mind, but it's great. Sarah, we've got to do the book, haven't we? So tell me about the book. What's it called?
Yeah, so the book is called The Gentle Marketing Revolution. And I really just talk about this journey to a gentler marketing paradigm. And people tell me it's not the typical, how-to marketing book. I didn't want to write that kind of approach. I really made it into a personal journey, but also has a lot of the doing things. So it's really this being and doing, and it's kind of set up in 3 stages. The first one is rumble. So rumble with your own story, find out who you are, your values, your worldview, your definition of success, all of these good things. Then the second stage is rise. And these 3 stages are kind of used often in the labyrinths. So if you walk through a labyrinth, you first walk into the center of the labyrinth, you rumble. In the middle, you rise. So meaning you really come full circle and you know who you are. You know how to talk about yourself and be different and unique. And then on the way out, you resonate. So the third part is resonate. And that's when you really resonate with your ideal clients. You find out who they are. You create win-win situations. Actually, I talk about triple win situations because we want to involve the planet as well. So yeah, it's those 3 parts. And I bring in a lot of fun stories from my hippie upbringing and all that.
How long did it take you to write the book?
I took the year of 2020, the famous year where everything just slowed down, and
I'm impressed to write a book in a
book.
year. It's pretty good going, actually, because
I'm a good doer when it comes to things
so
like
you
that.
can
Like,
hustle
yeah,
when you need to.
yeah. That's right.
But I
Yeah.
mean, I guess the difference is it's hustle with joy. When you're doing something like that, it doesn't feel like a hustle. It feels like you're driven to do it. So you just write.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, at the beginning you asked about passionate. Well, that's where the passion, I just can't stop. It's like, okay, the world needs to hear this. And so I just keep going. Yeah.
When you do stop and you do these things, it's amazing what can happen.
Yeah.
Space.
Like
Amazing what can
reading
happen.
it now, it feels like I don't know who wrote the book. I'm like, I read some pages, I'm like, did I write this? I don't remember. So that's really how it felt. Like it just,
I've heard that so often when people have this. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So how do people get in touch with you if they want to? And what is it that you offer? And what is it that you want people to do?
So they can come over to my website, sarahsantacroce.com. And they can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm still hanging out there mostly. Please do put in the comment that you have heard our conversation on your podcast or watched it on YouTube. It's always nice to have a personalized invitation so I know who you are and how we know each other. What else? I have my own podcast. It's called The Gentle Business Revolution. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, you can look that up on iTunes. And what I want you to do, if this idea of gentle marketing is intriguing and you're like, well, how does that all work? I'd like you to go over to sarahsantacroce.com/one page. That's the number one, and then page, to download a one-page marketing plan in the shape of a mandala. I'm going to hold it up if you're watching this on YouTube. And that's kind of my new approach to the 7 P's of marketing. And it comes in the form of a mandala, because with the mandala is a creative process. And I think there's not enough creativity in our marketing. And also by working through these 7 P's, you come to your center. And then once you market from within, everything just becomes much more easier. And
so for the sake of my podcast listeners, looking at that mandala being held up to the camera is not very helpful. So what we'll do is we'll put that on the website. You can see it. You can find the mandala at the website Life, Passion and Business, and you can find all of these links to Sarah Santacroce there too. And I didn't touch on your name. That name is wonderful. Oh. It's Italian. Is that your? I mean, what's your Italian roots? Or is that?
Yeah.
You know your Italian roots?
Yeah, of course. My husband originally is from Sicily. So way south in Italy, but he grew up, born and raised in Canada. But we kind of, went back to Sicily. So we have a place in Sicily, and I say on my website that whenever I'm in Sicily, I turn into Italian Sarah. And like it's really a big part of my life, and it gives me kind of this different culture to live with and play with and be more playful. I'm otherwise quite a serious person. So in Sicily, I just, la dolce vita is just different. So, it means holy cross.
You realize Sicily is where the mafia started, and it started with lemons. You realize that, don't you? Apparently, it started with lemons because lemons were so valuable. They started fighting over lemons, and people started up protection over lemons, basically. But there you go, because the British Navy were paying £1 a lemon or something stupid. I don't know what it was, but it was a fascinating story. But I love Italy. I love Italy. I have so much time for it. I spent some time in Italy, and it's like I would love to spend more time there. So Sarah, we get to that one point, that one question I ask all of my guests. What is the meaning of life for you?
Yeah, we kind of addressed it a little bit when we talked about humanity and, what the meaning of life for humanity is. For me, really, I think it's about growth. It's about personal growth, spiritual growth. I believe in reincarnation. So really, like, coming to this planet with a certain task or a certain thing that we need to learn. That's what the meaning of life for me is. And then you don't know that going in yet what that's going to be, and I guess you never know, but you keep failing, or there's obstacles, and you learn out of those, and that's the meaning of life for me.
So do you have a sense of what your purpose is on this planet?
I believe it has to do with something related to community and something related to the business world, definitely not politics. And it's funny because my dad's grandma, she was like a tough businesswoman. She had a restaurant and invested in real estate and things like that. And at that time, that was very different. And so I think I have a lot of things from her that I need to lean into and say, yeah, how can I, be a leader maybe of a movement, but be a gentle leader, and a leader that allows for a seed in each. No, how does it go again? A seed in the circle for each leader, basically, so that it's not like the guru type movement where I'm saying this is how it is, right? And the followers all just follow along, but it's this holding space, more like, let's have a conversation about the way we do business and marketing. And that's what's happening in my gentle business circle, where basically marketers that are like me, fed up with the way we do marketing, come in. And it's not like I'm teaching anything, but I'm there to hold the space and say, let's talk about this. How does it feel for you? What can you bring in? And that's what I feel like my role is somehow.
It sounds like you're a facilitator or someone bringing this to the world.
Right. Yeah.
Well, Sarah Santacroce, it's been wonderful to talk to you. I have a really, really lovely time having this conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your gentle marketing approach with us. And I'm sure we will be speaking again sometime.
Would love to. Thanks so much for having me, Paul. It's been an honor.
All the best. And that was Life, Passion and Business with Paul Harvey and my guest, Sarah Santacroce. If you would like to catch up with Sarah, you can find her at sarahsantacroce.com. You can also connect with her on LinkedIn and on Facebook and on Twitter. Do check out that one-sheet marketing plan in the shape and the form of a mandala. Check out the Start Here tab for all of her free resources. There's also the book, The Gentle Marketing Revolution, which contains the 3 pillars of her process, and lots more stories of her childhood and her life in the living in the hippie community. All of those links are available on the podcast app, and you can also find them at the website lifepassionandbusiness.com. Okay, as I mentioned at the beginning, now is the time to discover how to find some more focus in your life and get things done. So we're all looking to move forward. We all want to find some measure of success in the world. And if you've heard the podcast, you know I have a view of success, but that's another conversation. But the point is, however you look at this, we want to get things done. You might want to get a project over the line. You might have a really big goal that you're looking to move forward on. And the problem is, whenever we start these projects, whenever we do anything like this, there's always some resistance. There's always something that gets in the way. And that can be a multitude of things. But the key to this is, how do we retain focus and stay with the project and push it over the line? And that's where focus coaching can help. Now, it's a process that I discovered some 15 years ago during my coach training, and it's something sometimes called focus coaching, turbo coaching, speed coaching, and it's a really simple process where we define what it is you're trying to achieve, and we look at the resistance that you're experiencing in that achievement, come up with some strategies to solve that resistance, commit to setting a date, and I hold your feet to the fire to make sure that you do that. So there's a commitment, there's an accountability process, and that's it. That's basically how it works. You get it done. And I can tell you, it is so powerful when you start working in this way, particularly when you work with someone who supports you in the process of doing it. And one thing to remember, success is never guaranteed, but the struggle always is. And that's what this coaching is designed to do. It's designed to get you through the struggle towards the success you're looking for. So do check out the link on this podcast or at the website lifepassionandbusiness.com. You will find a video of me again explaining this process, but if you go below the video, there's a booking link where we'll have a discussion about your project and how we could get you sorted. As always, if you have enjoyed this podcast, if you found anything here of any use, please share it with a friend, because that's how people like yourself find good podcasts. If you can, give us a review. Give us a 5-star review. I have to ask for 5 stars. Why not? I think I'm worth it. When you support a podcast in that way, you have no idea how effective it is, both in terms of supporting us on the platform, but it also makes us feel good. Yes, it makes me feel good, and I like to feel good. As always, thank you for your time and attention. I will catch you next time.